It's 5 o'clock. It's Sunday. It's Super Bowl Sunday. But Callum, I did not think we would be live speaking about Stephen Glass being sacked this weekend after Aberdeen limped out of the Scottish Cup yesterday. We are, of course, going to be talking about the dismal defeat at Fir Park. But Stephen Glass is gone. The ego of Dave Cormack did not last until the summer. What's your initial reaction to the news, Callum?
I was a bit surprised by it. Obviously, it was a bad result. Things haven't been going our way in the league, but I thought Dave Cormack was still going to stick by him at least for a while yet. But I think it probably is the best decision, probably for all parties. Right now, I do feel sorry for Stephen Glass. I'd have loved for it to work, but just unfortunately, right now it wasn't. Whether that's necessarily directly through his fault, I think there's still issues coming from above him, and also the playing staff as well. There's got to be some responsibility too. But ultimately, at the end of the day, it's his job. To get them motivated, to give them the correct tactics, and get us results. And that's just not happened enough this season, unfortunately.
Yeah, I'm trying not to come across like I'm breathing too heavily or anything like that with, unfortunately, suffering a little bit with the cold. So that's why my mic will tend to be on mute every now and again. But I do also agree with that. I do have a tinge of disappointment and a little bit of feeling sorry for Stephen Glass. Look, we've mentioned many times on this show, Callum, it was an experiment. It was a process, if you want to quote Dave Cormack, and it's just not worked out. Look, the style of football has tried to be improved. We've tried to be a bit more attacking, and I think that's going to be an interesting one when we look towards kind of the new manager. We want to kind of keep that sort of. It's certainly a philosophy the club are going down. So we don't want to be, getting a manager that's going to start setting us up defensively. He was the outstanding candidate, but the candidate hasn't worked. He's been fired and let go. And look, Callum, yesterday, you found yourself on the back page of the Sun this morning. It was toxic at full time. And there was some unsavoury scenes, obviously, with the players trudging back up past the fans at full time. And I think that the way that those scenes unfolded at the end of the game, Cormack obviously being in attendance at the game, there was no way Stephen Glass was going to be able to survive that.
I'm just glad I didn't look really, really raging on the back of the newspaper. But yeah, no, it wasn't pretty. I think a lot of people were just very angry given what we just watched, given spent their time, money, traveling across the country, and it sort of seems to be happening week in, week out. So I can certainly understand. And I had a lot of frustrations. I've calmed down since then, but yeah, I was quite angry, and it's, I think, understandably so. For the most part, really, because it really was just pathetic powder puff, really, and we've seen that a lot so far this season.
Yeah, and I think we kind of touched on it maybe 2 episodes ago when we said the cup was really going to be the make or break, not of the season, but I was bold enough to say it was probably job defining for Stephen Glass. A lot of people feeling that the season's over, despite only being 4 points off fourth with that game in hand. But there's a lot of comments coming in. Paul Cockwell, the resident Highby, is very much enjoying the fact that Stephen Glass is no longer a manager. I'm surprised nobody has made a broken glass pun or glass broken in case of emergency. The usual suspect puns that are maybe going to be bandied around the dismissal of Stephen Glass. But looking at his record, it is the shortest, period of a manager in certainly recent times. Just the 41 games, 11 months, Callum. He didn't get the summer window as maybe some of us expected him to. 14 wins, 7 draws, and 20 defeats, a win percentage of just 34%. There's your hard data that Dave Cormack loves. And I think that the real kind of glaring one, a lot of comments coming in about the goals that we conceded. We've only scored 52 goals under Stephen Glass, but it's the 56 that we've conceded probably quite telling, because the goals that we were conceding were this happening week in, week out. They were soft goals, they were easy goals. From an Aberdeen point of view, even yesterday, both goals were just so predictably soft and bad that I couldn't even get angry at it. It was just, it didn't come as any surprise.
It was sort of a bit like, here we go again, wasn't it? But it has been massive concern, the way we've been playing defensively. It's just been every week we're shipping the softest of goals. And I remember a few weeks ago you were talking about the statistics of that. We were limiting teams to a few shots on target, but the percentage of them that were finding the back of the net were ludicrous. It was just so soft, giving up easy opportunities. And whilst I would still like the next manager, the next man up, to entertain us with attacking football, they also need to be a little bit more competent in terms of the defensive side of the game. I think that's where we see Stephen Glass's inexperience perhaps being exploited.
Yeah, and his record at Atlanta wasn't great in terms of keeping clean sheets, and I think it was no real surprise that run continued at its time at Aberdeen. I suppose we should, it's maybe taken 6.5 minutes to mention this, but please, Dave, let's not have anybody related to Atlanta lined up for the managerial job next.
I know.
And we'll take a look at the kind of bookies shortlist if you want, Calum, and maybe go through some of them. But Neil Simpson and Barry Robson have been placed in interim charge for Tuesday's game against St Johnstone. Would you be against having them in charge until the end of the season if it meant a proper recruitment process had taken place? And we really do get the correct candidate for the job. We're not rushing the next appointment here.
If that was the case, I would probably be concerned that it took that long, if I'm honest, to carry out a proper process and find the correct manager. If they were waiting for the perfect man, or they had someone in mind, the perfect guy that was maybe only available at the end of the season, then fair enough. Maybe if they're in a job now and wanted to carry that out until the end of the season, then I would probably be okay with that kind of thing. But as long as we know if that's going to be the case, that's what's happening, rather than being left in the lurch and going weeks and weeks and weeks upon end with these rumours flying around and not knowing who's going to be in charge. But having said that, having looked at some of the bookies' favourites right now, not very happy with those on that list so far.
Yeah, and I suppose, as Can't Be Bothered, a usual commenter during our lives, he mentions it'll be Jack Ross, one of the cheap options. Maybe a few people also making the connection yesterday at full time with the fact that Craig Sampson, a member of his backroom staff at both Hibs and Sunderland as goalkeeper coach, already finds himself involved at Aberdeen. Maybe people putting 2 and 2 together and making 5, or as Graham Hunter quite easily did before Stephen Glass was appointed, maybe putting 2 and 2 together and actually getting 4. Who knows? But Jack Ross for me is a very uninspiring choice, and maybe just a McInnes Mark II, certainly in my opinion.
I would probably tend to agree with that. I've no doubt that he could probably, in the short term, maybe get us up the table, but it's just not really exciting given the way we've seen Hibs play. We've had Michael on the show quite a lot, and he was, maybe not his number one fan either. But to be fair, I hadn't put the Craig Sampson thing. I hadn't put those two together. I think that was, well, for various reasons yesterday. However, I would not have been against him actually playing in goals, but I'm sure we'll come on to that.
Yeah, I'll come on to that in the second half of the show. But get Cormac in the dugout, Chris. I wouldn't put it past Dave Cormac to get himself somehow involved. It's getting a bit comical at times. But Calum, if we look at the short list, Jack Ross is currently the favourite for the job. We've kind of touched on that with Craig Sampson, and I think his style, maybe Paul in the comments might have an opinion on that. but I don't think his style of play would kind of align with what Aberdeen are going for in terms of having that attacking philosophy, looking to be on the front foot more often than not. Jim Goodwin coming in at second favourite. There's some people that are maybe against Jim Goodwin, maybe just, maybe because it's not out with the box or maybe not proven himself enough. But I don't know. I don't think I would be against Jim Goodwin as next manager.
Of the sort of top 4 or 5, favourites for the job, I think he would certainly be my number one choice out of those. I quite like what he's doing with St Mirren. We've seen them cause problems with us, and that's obviously on a far lesser budget than we're on. I think they're still in the cup, pushing for top 6 as well. Obviously, we are no longer in the cup. I would not be against Jim Goodwin. I think I'm quite impressed by him. Obviously, it's very early in his managerial career too, but I feel like he is ambitious. He's recruited quite well, I suppose, during his time at St Mirren. I wouldn't be totally against it, as I'll continue to haver on whilst you cough.
Yeah, thank you very much. And it's great. There's so many of you commenting your opinions. We will get to them as soon as we can. Barry Robson in there as third favourite, 5-1. These odds being provided by McBookie. Obviously, he's been given the job on an interim basis with Neil Simpson. Barry Robson doing a brilliant job. I think it's under 18s he coaches currently for Aberdeen. Be interesting to see. We saw Connor Barron get a brief spell in the game yesterday, and I thought looked very good. Maybe question marks why he wasn't brought on sooner when we were chasing the game. It'll be interesting to see what sort of game time Connor Barron gets under these both Simpson and Robson. But is he ready for that step up? Are Aberdeen ready for another inexperienced manager at this level after the experiment of Stephen Glass hasn't worked out?
I'm not convinced by that one. I think I'm happy to see how he does, and certainly if he impresses in his time in interim charge with Neil Simpson, then I'm sure he will have every right then to go for the job himself. Right now, I still need a little bit of convincing on that one though.
Yeah. Next on the list are both Scott Brown and Neil Lennon. I don't think we need to delve too much into them. Nope and nope. Gordon Strachan, again for me, he's always technical director at Dundee. Nope. Paul Lambert, I think he's still out of work down south. Nah, I think you'd probably command too much of a wage and probably would look to stay down south, similar to what Alex Neil, in terms of his interest, is probably more favourable down south. Jack Collison, as I said, anybody linked to Atlanta, no thank you. Kjetil Knutsen, the current Bodo Glimt manager.
Easy for you
That's
to
a
say.
very tricky one to pronounce. Now, we saw Hibs recently sign a couple of players from there. That's certainly a manager that maybe will raise a few eyebrows or maybe make a few fans sit up and take notice. Obviously, what they did against Roma in the group stages. I think it's Celtic they face in the knockout stages. So certainly one that will be people might have a keen eye on next week. So I think it is this week that the European games return. So interesting to see what he does. Would you be against seeing Aberdeen push the boat out and go for a foreign manager, Callum?
I wouldn't be against it. No, I think then automatically sometimes my excitement levels will then just naturally increase based off absolutely nothing. Because I'm not going to claim that I'm very clued up on Norwegian football. I do know obviously Bodo Glimt are performing quite well in Europe. Have done so, sold on players for profit as well, having developed them. But other than that, I know very little about the man, how he plays, his style, etc. But it is, it's something different, and obviously, I think if that does happen, we might have to conduct a little bit more research into things. But in terms of just players outside the box, slightly, I'm not against that at all. But I'm not going to sit here and pretend I have a clue about Mr. Knutsen. Good name,
I like how you say we, trying to indicate that you do a lot of research for this show.
I do loads, mate. I do loads. I don't know what you're talking about. Well, how about we swap it? I'll let you edit a video one then, yeah? And then I'll do the research. I'll see how that goes.
I'll edit the Josh Walker video coming out tomorrow, because I know there's a lot of you tuning into this episode. I know there's a lot of you that have subscribed to the YouTube channel. We knew that we were in for something good when the fact that we had 6 new subscribers over the last 2 days. There's obviously a lot of people expecting a meltdown on the back of the result yesterday. Now, one manager that has been on this shortlist provided by McBookie was someone that was maybe touted with Hibs from his connections to Hibs, and also Dundee with James McPake being under pressure, is Kevin Thompson, the current Kelty Hearts manager. Again, that's someone would be taking quite a big step up. And I suppose another manager, he's not on the shortlist, but given his connections to Aberdeen, currently works for a club in Aberdeen and also has connections to the club, Paul Hartley. What's your thoughts on either of them?
I'd rather Kevin Thompson than Paul Hartley, put it that way. Paul Hartley did, I think he did quite well at Alloa. Things didn't quite, however, work out the way he would have liked at Dundee. And at Cove, obviously, he's doing very, very well with them, has to be said. But also, if you then compare their budget with perhaps some of the other teams in the league, you'd certainly expect that. Yeah. So not for me, Paul Hartley, unfortunately. Kelty Hearts manager, Kevin Thompson. We obviously saw Tam Courts. I think he was manager of Kelty Hearts before Dundee United. He's done fairly well. Obviously, a little bit inconsistent lately, but certainly had them performing very, very well. But also not for me. I think it is. That would be a big gamble, a big step up for him. Maybe a bit too early. I've no doubt that he probably will go on to bigger and better things. I think he has maybe been, maybe langle himself for that Rangers job one day as well, with his links. But not for me. Not for me. It would be outside the box, though. I'll say that much.
Yeah, I mean, I've listened to him on Open Goal a couple of times, and he does speak quite knowledgeably about football. But again, given the kind of inexperience at the top level, you look at Stephen Glass, you probably want a manager that's probably tested themselves at this level, or certainly a top level coming into this job. I think, especially if we're looking to appoint a manager, in the coming weeks or before the end of the season, because it's not to say that we're in a relegation battle yet, but maybe when we're speaking after Tuesday night's game, it could become a different story. And the last person on the short list that McBookie tweeted out, former Celtic manager, current MLS Championship winning manager, Ronnie Deila.
Weirdly, that is the one on the list that I would be probably most happy with. Hear me out. He wins things wherever he goes. Okay, his Celtic side at times a little bit shaky, but I've seen a lot of Celtic fans say that he wasn't given the time for him to carry out exactly how things have gone, and it sort of set the precedent going on though for how they did. I think he'd be entertaining. I imagine we've just gone to Ibrox and got a result, and he's doing the Ron roar. That'd be quite funny.
Do the roar.
Oh God!
There's a Shrek reference. If nobody gets that, I'll be disappointed.
I hope somebody clips that up. And maybe it comes back to Scotland with a point to prove as well. I would not be totally against Ronnie Deila, and I don't know if you expected me to say that, Glenn.
I was actually more surprised by how many Aberdeen fans were maybe open to that idea, to be honest. Although if he does go on to win something, I hope he doesn't do what he did when he won the MLS with New York and pretty much get naked on the pitch, because I don't think anyone needs to see that.
I don't think anyone needs to see it, but given our recent Scottish Cup history, for example, it probably would be justified.
Now, obviously, as I said, we're doing this live on our YouTube channel, and the video is also streaming on our Twitter page at @RTG_podcast. It's great to have so many of you with us and interacting in the comments. So, Calum, let's have a look at what people have been banding about in terms of names. Now, when Stephen Glass was being appointed, there was a lot of talk from Aberdeen fans around Darren Fletcher. Now, his former Man United teammate, Michael Carrick, is currently out of job now. I think it was you that was quite eagle-eyed and tweeted it out a few weeks ago, and it has been tweeted before that he used to have posters of, is it Ian Jesse he had on his wall?
I think it was
And
Ian Jess, yeah.
Evan Dickerson suggests, what about Michael Carrick? But I think I saw someone also mention Darren Fletcher. I think when you're looking at both Carrick and Fletcher, you probably go back to Stephen Glass. Is it risky going for another inexperienced manager so soon after just hiring one?
There would obviously be an element of risk with that. What is Dan Fletcher? I think technical director at Manchester United right now. I don't know if that is something he would leave probably on a very handsome paycheck as well. As pretty good opportunity for him. Michael Carrick, though, I believe he did leave the club following his sort of interim spell after Ole Gunnar Solskjaer left. Evan's totally right. He needs to progress in his managerial career. I wouldn't be so against it, mainly for the Ian Jess thing. I mean, it would be fantastic, just for that alone. But he did okay in his short spell at Manchester United. Probably has a lot of contacts as well. There's definitely worse names out there. Certainly, a lot of those names on the McBookie list, anyway.
Yeah, Alex McLeish being mentioned here. I actually don't know if he would return to club management. Obviously, his second spell in terms of Scotland didn't go as well as his first, and I probably have a feeling he's enjoying his time out of the game and probably won't find himself in a hurry. But probably wouldn't be as surprising to see McLeish along with many others, from that Gothenburg kind of era, being touted along the jobs. Paul Reiki, another regular commenter over on YouTube, saying Roy Keane is free and looking for a job, obviously recently interviewing for the Sunderland job before declining to take it. I mean, that would certainly be interesting. Him or Paulo Di Canio, those would be two wild shouts that would certainly get the players fired up.
Well, Michael Scott's literally just caught it right now. Di Canio. Entertaining for probably most followers of the Cinch. However, not sure it would end in success for Aberdeen, despite the fact watching them alone in the dugout would probably be pretty good, and the post-match and pre-match pressers would be very, very enjoyable.
Yeah, and I suppose the comment Lee Seymour makes, just kind of on the back of some of the early comments we've had, is I think the new guy needs to come in and galvanize the support, and I think that's actually quite an interesting point, because you made the point there, and I've seen it kind of repeated a few times. That list that we've just gone through from McBookie, people are calling it uninspiring, and when we've spoken about Jack Ross, maybe Jim Goodwin, people also referring to that as uninspiring. When there is such a maybe apathy and delusion spreading through the Aberdeen support just now, is it vital that we get a manager that's going to be able to re-galvanise that support?
I think so. In some sort of sense, I think we did kind of see that with Stephen Glass at points, despite them not giving us too much reason recently for that to be the case. But I would certainly agree it needs to be something that the fans buy into, because I think with Stephen Glass, although obviously everyone presumably wanted it to go well, obviously I don't speak for everyone, but I think there was a lot of skepticism about it when he came in, given sort of the way it came about, and also his lack of experience. Someone that fans will get behind, create that sort of link between the fans and the players, and then obviously the management staff too, would be very, very important, as there's still a lot of various names coming in, and someone who I think would galvanise the sport is Neil Warnock. So I agree now, McGee.
That is the name I was coming to, but it's an interesting point you just made there, because I was chatting to somebody in the second half, Scott Macklin, Dil Magaki. I know you're going to be listening, and you're really disappointed if I don't give you a shout out in this episode, because you wouldn't leave me alone yesterday and saying that you needed a shout out on the next episode. So there you go.
You leave him alone.
And Scott Macklin was actually saying that the sound bites that Cormac puts out and Glass at times put out as well, football fans are so fickle. We're quite easy to jump on the bandwagon of those comments and be like, yeah, brilliant, buying into it straight away. So it is a point on that manager that if we can, and it'll probably be the same at any manager that comes in, they'll want to give the sound bites that the support are gonna jump on and get behind. So it will be an interesting, and it's probably going to be a key decision because Cormac, there's always going to be a lot of questions on him over the appointment of Stephen Glass and the fact that it's not worked out. So there's almost a lot of pressure on Dave Cormac now to go and get this right, and there's probably a lot of question marks and maybe a lack of trust from some elements of the support that maybe the Cormac can't get this right.
I think there's a hell of a lot of pressure on Dave Cormac. He went and got Stephen Glass, said he was the outstanding candidate, and I thought he would, stand by him forever and ever because that's his man. Well, that was his man. Whereas now that's not worked. It's come to an end. He needs to go out and make sure that this next one works to a degree. I'm not saying they need to go and take us to the Champions League or whatever, but it needs to be certainly a massive, massive improvement. However, I said this yesterday. I don't know if I do trust Cormac to go and be that man to find him, given the way Stephen Glass then kind of went. But quite happy to be proved wrong, and I very much hope I am.
Yeah, and I suppose other question then would be not only do we trust Dave Cormac to get the right man, but with Stephen Gunn being director of football, does a new manager coming in place question marks on Stephen Gunn's place in Aberdeen? Obviously, Alan Russell, Henry Apple, who have both left the club along with Stephen, but would a new manager, some of these names that we've discussed already, would they be willing to work under a director of football, let alone working under Stephen Gunn? It's fair to say a relatively, if not very, inexperienced person for that role. Would or should the club now be looking for a more experienced director of football as well? Again, if that is the philosophy that the club will continue to look at.
I think that's a very fair question. Obviously, Stephen Gunn, he's worked his way up to that level. I commend him for that. And obviously, we don't know the in and outs of the sort of transfer business, etc. But presumably, he is directly responsible for a lot of that. And I think in January, not enough was done to help Stephen Glass. Obviously, we did sign Vicente Berserwin, who looks to be, pretty good. Has got a lot of room to develop and probably does need to. Who knows what Dante Polvara will be like, but losing Hedges, McGinn as well, and right now being left with basically Christian Ramirez, our striker, that I don't think we did enough in January. Whether, Stephen Gunn will maybe learn from that is another question. Whether you get another chance to learn from that, I don't know, because the new manager coming in will obviously have to either be happy to work with Stephen Gunn, or they'll have to weigh up. It's either might be the manager or keep Stephen Gunn in place, and then we might end up with someone who's just happy to work with Stephen Gunn, but it might not go as well. See what's just happened, basically.
Yeah, and I suppose the January transfer window is why, in a way, I kind of feel sorry for Stephen Glass, because he obviously didn't get the backing that he was maybe expecting or hoping for, it should be said. But the way we came out and played against Rangers, I just can't believe in that space of time we are where we are now. There was no signs during that Rangers game that I thought we would go on the run that we went on and find ourselves in the position we are now. But I suppose that's football. And to go back to kind of looking at some of the other names that are being bandied about, Graham Duthie, good to see you tuning in, a resident Hearts fan. Ian Cathro might be available. Well, since you're a Hearts fan, I know you like comments about Dundee and emails. Maybe if his email with his CV finds its way into Cormac's inbox, it's swiftly deleted. Another name that was bandied about pre-Stephen Glass was Chris Coleman. Certainly someone that I quite like the sound of. Again, maybe would require certainly a big wage and a bit of work to get, but a name that maybe comes with a bit of intrigue.
I think so. Do you like the sound of him just because of his nice Welsh accent, though?
Well, I thought you were going to say his wife, but
What?
no. Um,
Get a grip.
yeah,
I no,
no.
but I do agree though. I would like Stephen Coleman. What's going on? Chris Coleman. I think he did very very well. He did very very well with Wales.
Mhm,
Obviously things didn't pan out very well at Sunderland, but right now it doesn't seem to be panning out very well for anyone at
mhm,
Sunderland. So it'll be interesting to see how that goes with Alex Neil, who is also probably someone I would have been quite happy with. I would have taken, but Chris Coleman, given the experience he has at a top level as well, with Wales at the Euros, would take probably.
mhm. Yeah, and let's be honest, that Wales side wasn't exactly world class, but they were
Mm,
getting some pretty class results.
yeah.
Neil Warnock, I know he's been mentioned a lot of times in the comments, but another person here, Lewis 24 AFC. Lewis, I know you're going well in our fantasy league. Tight at the top between you, Callum, and Brune. Seems to be a three-way runaway battle for that top spot. But Neil Warnock also claiming the past year of love to give Scottish football a go. It'll be interesting to see if he wants to throw his name into the hat again. He would certainly not be afraid to speak up about refereeing decisions, that's for sure.
No, and especially if he's not getting the support from above him that he would like. It would certainly be entertaining, but once again, I don't know if it'd be for the right reasons. For him, no doubt he's a good manager, but in terms of the long term, he's very much getting on a bit. So I'm I'm not too sure, but it would be funny. I'll say that much.
Yeah, and I like this one from Graham Duffy again, saying David Robertson, who's obviously currently out in India. Maybe another one, dark horse sort of suggestion. Obviously, links to the club. I know maybe a lot of bad feeling towards David Robertson, of course, for the way he left the club for Rangers. But again, one of those maybe left field sort of shouts that again will probably get linked because of his connections to the club.
Yeah, maybe at some point, but I can't say I know much about um, the standard over there or how that experience um, that he's built up would stand him in any good stead or not.
Yeah. And this is an interesting comment from Peter Murphy. I don't know if we've kind of covered this, but do you
Hmm.
think Cormac will continue with the idea of this emerging manager or go for a more established, experienced type? I think we've kind of probably touched on it in terms of our own personal feelings towards a situation, but you never know what's going on inside that head of Mr. Cormac. What do you think his view? Because he's obviously made his feelings quite clear in terms of the philosophy of the club. You know, having this ethos of developing young players and playing a nice style of attacking
Mm.
football. Do you think he will gamble again and go for another emerging manager?
I think there is room for sort of a balance between them both. Someone who does sort of play with that style, I'd rather we stuck with that rather than we maybe went back to this boring 1-0 where we come away, even having won. They just called that was terrible. Um, but there is bound to be emerging managers with slightly more experience too, whether it's maybe not at this level,
Mm-hmm.
but I suppose then you are looking for guys like sort of Kevin Thompson and the names mentioned. I personally would prefer someone slightly with a little bit more experience than Atlanta United too, basically.
Yeah, yeah. I suppose you need to just take a look at Sean Maloney, another person, but again, pre-Stephen Glass, that we were all kind of excited when his name was getting banded about purely because he'd been working for Belgium, and look how that's turning out for Hibs. Albeit they managed to progress in the cup, surviving a small scare against Arbroath today, but we do have the potential to get our fingers burnt by trying another, as Peter says, emerging manager. And I think, given the kind of precarious situation on our league, standings just now, and probably the fact now that we're out of the Scottish Cup, the importance of finishing fourth now is certainly huge in terms of getting European football and also the finances that come with that for the club. It is going to be a risk if we go down the emerging manager route. So I do think we will probably kind of steer towards the more established, experienced side. And I think I do agree with you, Calum. I'd probably have a bit more confidence, in someone that does have that experience. I like this comment here from Colin Miller. Obviously, as I said, Super Bowl Sunday, continuing the NFL theme by saying Aberdeen to continue the American dream and appoint Tom Brady a proven winner. Please don't put those sort of ideas into Dave Cormack's head. And if Dave's listening, Dave, that's obviously we are just having a laugh about that. I suppose...
I never thought you'd have to clarify that. Never once when we started that, I thought you'd have to clarify that you were taking the piss about Tom Brady being the next Aberdeen manager. Jesus.
Well, you never know. You really never know. I suppose actually this one from Lee Seymour is probably surprising that his name has not actually popped up on the shortlist yet, as it tends to always do when the Aberdeen manager job comes around, is Alex Ferguson's son Darren. I don't think he is still in charge of Peterborough just now. But he had quite successful spells at Peterborough in the past. And obviously with Alex coming up in a couple of weeks for the unveiling of the statue, I'm sure it's a name that will be bandied about, or probably Alex Ferguson will have to field questions around the managerial appointment if there's not one made between now and then.
He is still manager of Peterborough, I've just checked. It seems as if he's been there forever. I feel like it would certainly be an interesting one, obviously, given the clearly obvious connection. They have no guarantee that it would actually work, though, and I don't think we should, base our next appointment off sort of that nostalgic feeling. As much as I would probably still get behind it even a little bit.
Yeah, no, that's a fair point. And still just looking through some of the comments, Mike Smith here saying Nuno Espirito Santo. Again, I think that's another one that we might have to push the boat out on. Billy Davis, another one he mentions. Again, another name that has been linked many times with the club. Not for me. And Colin Miller, this is maybe a point I won't need to clarify too much, Callum, for you, but can't seeing another big name agreeing unless the terms change regarding player recruitment. I think that's again another fair point, because there was that comment made around Stephen Glass about him not necessarily being sort of a yes man on the transfers. So again, that'll probably be an interesting one. Will the new manager kind of buy into this ethos of developing younger players?
Yeah, I mean, it'll certainly be an interesting one, especially given some of the names that we've talked about. I certainly can't see them agreeing to that. And I think a lot of managers do like to have at least an element of control. Obviously, there would still be head of recruitment and those kind of things, like good scouting network, hopefully. And it's fine to bring in players to develop them, but they also have to, be worth us bringing in, and for that time and effort that we put in. So that's something they do have to consider.
Yeah, and another good, interesting point here from Can't Be Bothered. Callum, do you think the lack of recruitment in January might have been due to the fact that Cormac already decided Stephen Glass wasn't the man for the job after all?
I think it was possibly a factor. You would probably think that is somewhere in his mind, but at the same time, then either if you're already thinking that, then either back him and try and improve it, or give him the bullet and give someone else an opportunity to come in and, bring in their players with however limited time they have. And then it's sort of the lack of decision making on that front has now ended us in the position where we are. Whereas we've just missed the transfer window, and we're going to be without a manager, sitting ninth and out of the Scottish Cup. So.
Yeah, and that's why I'm wondering if we might end up with Simpson and Robson till the end of the season, because these guys have obviously worked with the players probably in some capacity throughout the season already, know what they've got, also know what they've got coming through the youth academy as well. And like I said, to look at Connor Barron yesterday, probably the one player on that pitch outside of Christian Ramirez that actually put a creditable amount of effort in, during his spell on the pitch. And of course, we are live for an hour here on YouTube this Sunday evening, reacting to the news of Stephen Glass's sacking from Aberdeen. It's great to have so many of you with us live. If you are new to the channel, please leave a like, hit that subscribe button, and of course, we are enjoying all the interactions that are coming in. And Callum, there have been a few comments. Why are you not applying for the job? Plenty of football manager experience there.
Plenty of football manager experience. If you do watch the save, currently going with Leicester, not going so well. So as good a reason as any. But feel free to check out the channel. But after this, I will have some Aberdeen content coming for you as well. So make sure you subscribe there too.
Yeah, well, maybe you could dust off your CV. There's definitely been people that have applied based on football manager experience before. There's one of the few Stephen Glass puns, wondering if he'll be a window cleaner next. Yeah, very good, Graham. And I think the problems, from Colin Miller saying, I think the problems go further than Glass and the coaching team. If we had a more experienced director of football, and again, this has been raised around Stephen Gunn, would that have helped? But again, it's top to bottom. And again, probably goes around the question marks of was Stephen Glass yes men for Dave Cormack? And I do think this will have a bearing on a new manager coming in. Will they, or how easily will they be able to work with the likes of Stephen Gunn and Dave Cormack? Especially when Dave Cormack's quite happy to take to his own personal Twitter account, as he did once again on Friday, pre-match. He's not shy of being transparent, as he likes to say. Yeah, it'll be an interesting one to see how much that has an effect on a new manager.
I think so. From my experience following Newcastle as well, but we'll draw from that. You managed to bring in a quality manager in Rafa Benitez, and he was working under Mike Ashley and his cronies, and then eventually it became too much for him, and he left. So if we are going to bring in a high quality manager for us that is sort of experienced, has a proven track record, and could potentially take us on to that next level, that is something that the club will then have to consider in terms of how much power they get, what authority they have in terms of recruitment, and who's working above him, who's making the decisions above him.
Yeah, absolutely. And it'll be interesting to see kind of what happens over the next few weeks. At least it's provided us with some guaranteed content for the upcoming shows. Speaking about managerial ins and outs and who will be coming from there. Will we go down the Dutch route? Jaap Stam's been sacked from Cincinnati, says Flower of Scotland. And someone else that kind of with family in Holland was Jon Dahl Thomason, the former Malmo manager, leaving them. Previous experience of winding up Rangers. I'm sure he would go down well if he fancied leaving his family to hop on a flight for an hour to come over to Aberdeen. But Calum will bench the managerial chat for the time being. Of course, the news of Stephen Glass's sacking follows yet another poor cup exit this season. Another 2-1 away defeat in the cup, this time at Motherwell. And it all started so well, maybe unexpectedly, with Christian Ramirez nodding the Dons in front after just 3 minutes. A player who at kickoff had the expression of, I cannot be fucked playing in these conditions for 90 minutes. When you saw his face charging down on Liam Kelly. But 3 minutes into that tie, I thought, this is going much better than expected.
Yeah, it sort of peaked there, didn't it? We could have just left and not known any better. Those weather conditions sort of, I knew it was sort of drizzling, etc. earlier on, but it seemed to just, someone turned it from like sort of 2 up to 10 as soon as kickoff happened there. But it was the perfect start. It got all our hopes up, and we did end up being let down. I did enjoy the celebrations though, and it just goes to show once again how important Christian Ramirez has been to us this season. Imagine if he actually had any sort of decent service, what he could do.
Yeah, I say on the point you said it peaked after 3 minutes. It could have been a lot worse given Motherwell actually had a goal disallowed in the opening 90 seconds.
True.
It could have been an absolute disaster straight from the off. Not that I've actually watched it back to see if it was on or off, but I know certainly Graham Alexander in his post-match comments thought that he was onside. But yeah, it does again once, as you say, raise question marks on where we would be without Christian Ramirez. I did feel sorry for him yesterday. He looked very much inconsolable at full time. The fact that Twitter was very much people taking to Twitter to, let him know that the anger was in no way aimed at him at full time. It's almost like the city of Aberdeen have taken them under their arms and trying to console him over that heartbreak. But he had that chance to put us 2-0 up not long after with a lob that I don't know if the wind, blew the ball off course or not, but it was, unlucky as it just bounced past the post. But after that, Calum, we did absolutely nothing in the game. And there was only one team for the rest of that half anyway that looked like scoring.
Certainly, and in case you haven't guessed, it was Motherwell. They certainly seemed up for it. They had obviously a good backing as well vocally, but they knew what they wanted to get out of that game. They were well up for it. At times we were so sloppy, so slow in the build-up, just going side to side. And then you had Scott Brown taking the ball in one side, turning the other way, looking there, nope, turning back before putting it back out. It was just so laboured, and we've just seen it so many times this season. And yeah, we got punished.
Yeah, we did. And I think Calum's internet has, jacked in. So I'm hoping this is the joys of doing a live. Are you back?
We're back.
We're back, yes. You froze on the big stage, joys of doing a live. But, I think you were going to say we got pumped on the back of the what Motherwell were doing in that first half. And, well, one of the most shocking players in that first half. And can you cancel a loan between now and the end of the season? Because can we send Adam? I thought Matty Longstaff was going to take the award for the worst, loan signing of the season, but Adam Montgomery is going to do very well to run him close, because that was a disgraceful performance from the on-loan Celtic man yesterday.
Yeah, it wasn't great, was it? A lot of time, to be fair, no one else really that much better. And I will also say this, that my view was somewhat obstructed to begin with, because we were in the second row, so we were looking through the back of the net, which was a bit of a nightmare. But no, what wasn't Adam Montgomery's finest performance. Hopefully he can improve now in the season, whether he keeps his place in the team at all. Based off that, though, I'd be quite surprised.
Yeah, given the first goal, I remember the kids behind me calling Johnny Hayes a legend when he wildly lunged in on that left-hand side, picking up a very needless booking at the time, I felt. And it was Adam Montgomery's shirked clearance that led to the opening goal. And there's a video, I can't remember whose account put it out last night, so I do apologise if you are watching. And not only was it a terrible clearance from Montgomery, but Scott Brown not once but twice bottles a challenge. I think we need to discuss him and the lack of influence he has on these so-called big games. But then Johnny Hayes, who obviously found himself on a booking, had to then bottle a challenge on Van Veen on the edge of the box. Whether or not, if there was contact, it would have been on the line and maybe been a penalty. I think that might have also led to him bottling that challenge. But it allows Van Veen to cut inside enough to get a shot away. And at the time, I just thought, found its way into the back of the net quite easily, but it appears to take a deflection off Declan Gallagher. But yeah, left Gary Woods with no chance as a result. And once again, we make Van Veen look world class every time he comes up against us.
He is getting the Curtis Main treatment, isn't he? And also against us, he seems to turn into like this like prime bully centre forward up there that you would have seen sort of like in the early 2000s as well.
Hmm.
He just causes all sorts of problems for our defenders who just don't seem up for it whatsoever. And at times he's been described as a thug from John Smith,
Hmm.
which I think is probably fair to say. But for the most part, within the laws of the game, he's just using his strength, being a bully, and making things happen for Motherwell. And God, I hate him so much. Would you sign him just so you can't score against us, Curtis Main?
I actually said on the drive back up the road, he's almost the sort of player we actually miss. A player that seems to have a personal vendetta against the back line. His personal problem with David Bates and Declan Gallagher in that second half was actually almost amusing to watch at times. But him, along with the Motherwell boys, had Calvin Ramsey wound up, Declan Gallagher wound up. Calvin Ramsey, lost his head in that second half. Now, obviously, I'm not going to, this isn't on Calvin in particular. The Motherwell boys were, constantly throwing missiles and objects at Calvin Ramsey, which obviously we don't condone that sort of behavior. But they knew what they were doing in terms of getting at the Aberdeen players, and it had that desired effect. And I just felt that there were certain players that couldn't cope with that kind of intimidating atmosphere, which in itself was really concerning when you're chasing a game that was so hugely important. And in the first half, when you, Brune said I jinxed it because I said this would be an awful time to concede. When you have a corner and you concede continuously soft goals, you do not want your keeper dropping a simple catch to the feet of the Motherwell player to slot home inside your 6-yard box to put us 2-1 down with virtually the last kick of the half.
Certainly not. Maybe the worst thing that can happen in a football game. It only occurred to me when it got to the second half, when he was right in front of us, was how small he is. He takes up
Yeah.
so little of the goal. It's unbelievable. Which sort of, maybe explains things a little bit, but at the same time, your handling skills as goalkeeper should be a lot better. You should be able to, hold on to that. And it was just, as it was the worst time to concede, one of the worst times to concede.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm weird, and I think I personally, when that happened, it's just like, well, that's that then, really.
Yeah, and it's funny, that's exactly how I felt as well, that I didn't see where this Aberdeen team, we didn't see it, in recent weeks. I didn't see where that desire and fight was going to come in that second half. The reaction of the fans in the stand in that lower deck made it very clear they weren't happy as the players trudged off. And again, as I said about Calvin Ramsey maybe losing his head as a result of the way the Motherwell fans acted, I think Gary Woods lost any sort of confidence he had from the kind of treatment he maybe received from the fans, because there was countless corners in that second half. Two in particular stand out that he just looked so nervous from. Yes, he made a couple of good saves from Kevin Van Veen. I think Van Veen especially, there was a one chance in particular he should have definitely scored with the, on another day that could have definitely finished 4 or 5 for Motherwell. Kevin O'Hara even hit the bar from distance. I think it deflected off Bates. It was straight at Woods when Woods was beating all ends up. Had it not been for that deflection, I don't even know if he was getting a hand to it. But simple handling from corners, he was dropping them. It was just, if he was filling the fans with no confidence, I hate to think what Gallagher and Bates must have been thinking.
True, which maybe explains some of their performance, but it doesn't fill you with confidence. Goalkeeper like that, as the fans nor the defense either. As a defender, when sort of a boggles in the box, you want to know that you've got confidence that your keeper could come out and clear the box for you if you can't deal with it. But that is just not the case. And obviously the reception he got probably didn't help, but at the same time, can you blame anyone for wanting to voice their displeasure at these things?
No, not when you
Not
make the
really.
errors that you did against Celtic and then follow it up with basic errors that's ultimately cost us our place in the cup, because as I said, second half, he does make a couple of good saves, but from an Aberdeen point of view, maybe folk are going to disagree with this word, but I thought we were quite toothless in that second half. Far too passive, especially. Too many times the ball was getting played along the back four. I remember in stoppage time when I think Mackenzie played it to Bates, who played it to Gallagher, who played it to Ramsey, and then it went back again. And I just thought, what the fuck are we doing? And yeah, until I think Liam Kelly makes a good save in stoppage time for Christian Ramirez. There was, another podcast out there that was giving Ramirez a lot of slander, which I think was very uncalled for his performance yesterday. What else do you want to? What else do you want him to do when he's getting very little service? Bazowin again, when he gets the ball at his feet, looked lively, played a part in the opening goal. But again, quiet out with midfield. Again, question marks, as I said, around Scott Brown, Lewis Ferguson, we're going to come on to in a second. But again, the midfield, no one's there. No one's hungry. No one's fighting for it. It's just that. And I think when we don't have that fighting desire, I think that's why we're now seeing the decision around Stephen Glass, the hand's almost being forced.
Probably. What I was trying to say when we had the technical issues was so many times you saw Brown taking the ball in from one side, turning across to the other, looking, dilly-dallying, and then turning back before he eventually basically plays the ball back from where it came from. And there was just no progression. The amount of times we have the ball and there's a bit of grass in front of them for them to break into, change the picture a little bit in front of them, it just doesn't happen. No urgency at all. And it cost us. It's cost us a lot this season. It's just very, very frustrating. And I would agree with Gianpietro Manenti's comment there. Remember the other day you said he has sort of an XG of less than a goal a game. Yeah. He's doing a lot for us, and we'd be well worse off if it wasn't for him, and if he actually got any service. Let's not forget he doesn't take penalties either. Then he would be even further up scoring charts.
Yeah, as I said, I can't remember the word that they used to describe Christian Ramirez on this other Aberdeen podcast, but I was quite inclined to switch off after hearing the slander to the King of the USA. But again, I agree. I think you've got to look at the service he's getting. The fact that when he's given a chance, 9 times out of 10 he's taking them. I think their criticism was the fact that the chance he had in the second half from the corner, he wanted to take on his right foot instead of his left foot and showed what a limited striker he was. Well, fuck me, if that's a limited striker, I'd hate, and this is what he's doing in this squad. I don't know what else folk want from him. It beggars belief.
He also did score against Celtic with his left foot and put another one in the back of the net with his left foot, which would also maybe say then he should have the confidence to take it on his left foot at the same time. But it's a bit of a catch-22, shall we say?
Yeah, indeed. And right, Scott Brown and Lewis Ferguson. Then, as we said, that kind of we were both impressed by Lewis Ferguson in that game against Celtic. It kind of shows that fight and desire in that more advanced role. Scott Brown, we've seen it against Rangers. He's certainly up for the battles there. He's probably been lacking that sort of performances on a more consistent basis. What did you make of those two? And I'll get your thoughts just now on the full-time reaction of both of those players as well.
Okay. As far as Lewis Ferguson, in game, I found he was often far too deep. Against Celtic, when he got pushed up more advanced in support of Christian Ramirez, he caused a lot of problems. Obviously, went on to grab a goal as well, and it was sort of the reverse. Ojo was pushed forward instead. I just feel like there's always more problems when Ferguson is the more advanced of the two. Scott Brown, sort of at times I've been very it seems like I absolutely love him. I'm like, why is he even here at times? But it changes almost game to game, because a lot of the time, he's been brought in for that winning mentality, and we are constantly suffering narrow defeats. Okay, we're not getting absolutely smashed, but you'd think players like that with that leadership, the experience they have, could make a difference in these games. and then it doesn't seem to be working. Obviously, he then went up the stairs, head down. I think that's probably better than what Ferguson did. I can understand his frustrations as well. At the time, I was very angry, but I'm sure he was also upset at the result. But at the same time, think about it. Don't rise. That's just going to make things so much worse. It's going to incense the people who are there in what's an already pretty heated moment. I can see his frustrations, but just don't rise to it. And I was very angry at the time as well. But this is me, the sensible head on now.
Yeah, and like obviously there's folk, saying, oh, if you're going to dish it out, you've got to be able to, take it back. And I don't think folk were, angry that he was, giving it back. I think it was more, the fact he was telling fans to, basically telling fans to fuck off. And I've seen a few folks saying he was spitting in the direction of fans, but I don't know if that's just in, just purely he was just spitting. Not, I think there's nothing really in that. But I think when there is that heatedness, the fact he's telling fans to fuck off, as you said, these fans are forking out money week in, week out. It's not a good look for me. People have touted Lewis Ferguson as a captain before, probably last summer, the stuff around him potentially leaving, and it just kind of leaves a bad taste. For me, my anger and disappointment was more for around Stephen Glass, because it was once again another kind of inept performance in the dugout. Thought he was really slow to react to anything in the game again. I know he changed at half time with Hayes, but again, that was forced through a booking, and Hayes has probably been one of our better players in recent weeks. So yeah, for me, I just felt time was up for him. But yeah, Lewis Ferguson again, Scott Brown at half time didn't look at the Aberdeen support, kept his head down and walked on, did the same at full time. Maybe Lewis Ferguson needs to learn from that side as well. But he's certainly a passionate guy, and yeah, maybe the passion just got the better of him, as it did a lot of the Aberdeen fans, because we care a lot about our club, but don't like to see the club in the position it's in. And yeah, the search for the new manager is underway, as we have been live discussing this on Sunday. As always, thank you very much to everyone that has come along to join this live. It's, I think, Calum, unsurprisingly, been our most popular live so far.
Certainly, lots of interaction. Always very glad to hear what other people think. We are not the pinnacle of all knowledge. Never wants to be claimed that. So I'm always very happy to listen to other people's opinions, and also it then provides us something to talk about. Maybe they'll mention something we've not thought about. So certainly very, very welcome.
Yeah, absolutely. So just kind of recap, obviously, Stephen Glass being sacked as Aberdeen manager after 11 months in charge, with Henry Apelu also leaving the club, as well as Alan Russell. Neil Simpson and Barry Robson will take charge of Tuesday night's game against St Johnstone. Obviously, there's been loads of comments throughout the show. We will try and get this episode out on audio. Lee Seymour saying another left field suggestion. Jamie Smith working in America. Well, I brought this comment as it's just a good link for tomorrow. Tomorrow, obviously, is the 14-year anniversary of the match against Bayern Munich, and we will have an interview with former Aberdeen player and goal scorer that night, Josh Walker, released tomorrow. I feel like that Chris Hughes clip, and he says, "Do you want me to rap a little bit to lighten the mood? Do you want a former player interview to lighten the mood?" But Callum, I think you'll agree. We were both a bit unsure on how the interview was going to be kind of go, but it was definitely one of the most enjoyable interviews that we've had. A really good insight into Josh's career and his time at the club.
100%, I can guarantee you it will lighten the mood a bit. So make sure, whether you're listening to this after an audio, follow wherever it is so you don't miss out. Subscribe if you're currently watching on YouTube as well. We were both, on the day of recording, I just had my booster. I was feeling under the weather. You'd had tonsillitis. You'd been basically sleeping a lot of the previous day as well. We were we thought, oh, this might not come across the best, but it was certainly very, very interesting. Learned a lot about Josh, a lovely man, and some good stories in there too, which we certainly enjoyed. So make sure you don't miss out on that.
Yeah, so as I said, that will be out tomorrow. We'll try and get this. I know there's a lot of you that listen via audio. We're going to try and get this out this evening as well for those that obviously tune in via audio today. So maybe like a double dosage of red tinted glasses for you to listen to on Monday, Valentine's Day, whilst you're maybe working away or out with the dog, as many of you are. But once again, from myself and Callum, we appreciate all the support that you continue to show to us, and thanks for tuning in.